Hi, this is Barry here, and you're very, very welcome to today's episode of the WriteCome podcast. And today, the title of the podcast episode is Things Won't Change Until You Change. Now, you may think this is a little bit woo-woo and maybe self-development, and it was actually something that I heard Bob Proctor mention a long time ago. And at the time, I thought it was a fancy play on words, and it sounded nice. But I never really gave it much thought until recently. And why I actually gave it more thought was I'd been away recently on holidays and we had come back, and the way it is on holidays, you pig out and you eat more than you should and you drink more than you should. And I noticed that I was getting a little bit of a belly at the time, and as well too, when I was away, it made me realize how much time I was spending at the laptop. And when I actually thought about it, because at the time when we were away, I didn't have any devices with me other than a Kindle just for reading, so I couldn't actually do any work. And because of that, then there was this kind of, it was a clean break between the work I'd be doing up to before that. I was really, really busy. And because I had a week off then with nothing to do, it made me kind of think back of, how I was up to before we went on holidays. All the hours that I was putting in, to anybody looking at me from the outside, it probably looked like I was being really productive. I was spending a lot of hours on the laptop, and, I was neglecting time with my wife and my kids, and it probably looked like, all those hours were worth it. But when I actually sat and thought back about all the hours I'd spent, I couldn't honestly say that the majority of it was productive time. I got, like everybody else, I got distracted with social media. I went for looking, maybe on a Google search for something, and then all of a sudden I ended up going down this rabbit hole of looking at website after website and reading articles, and it wasn't why I had actually gone there in the first place. So I couldn't really say that, the time that I spent on the laptop and on my business was, time well spent. And, between my health and the time I was spending on the laptop, I realized that, things couldn't keep going on like they were going. I could see the future for me health-wise if I kept eating the way I was, and, not doing as much exercise as I was, and, pigging out and treating myself, every while. And, I got into the habit of sitting down in front of the TV and, snacking and, eating, absent-mindedly and not paying attention to what I was doing. And, if I had gone down that route, I could see what the future was going to be for me. I was going to put on weight. I was going to, not like my appearance. Business-wise, I was spending so much time, that I really want to do that in the future, that I really want to, put all those hours in the future and, neglect time with my family and, not have those as productive times. So, as Bob said, for things to change, I had to change. And when I came back, the first thing I did was I had latched onto the idea of a morning routine. Maybe you have heard of it before, maybe you haven't. But basically what a morning routine is that you are in charge of how you start your day. For a lot of people, we maybe just hit the snooze button a couple of times and we jump out of bed, and maybe we're late for work and we race down, grab a cup of coffee, and we race out the doors, and we're constantly on the back foot. We never seem to be catching up. We're constantly rushing and we're late in traffic, and then we get to work, we have to do this and we do that, and your mind it's constantly in a kind of a state of panic. It's trying to catch up, but because you have set off at this kind of, giving yourself a bad start, you're just constantly in the back foot, and you're never as productive as you could be if you do what I've been doing recently, which is to take the first hour or so to yourself. And, is to get up earlier, it's to meditate, which I'm doing at the moment. I have an app on my Kindle and I use it to meditate for about 15 minutes. And it's to go to YouTube and find some, positive video from maybe Jim Rohn or Bob Proctor or Tony Robbins or something like that, and feeding good information in your head before you actually switch on the laptop and have a look at the email or go to your social media accounts or anything like that. And it's basically to set your head up right, that when you are ready to enter your workspace and start doing it, that your head is in the right place. And I find that getting up early and having that hour to myself is great, because I have the house to myself, so I can do my writing straight away. The first thing I do every morning now is I have a set routine. I write my email for the day, I write my blog post, I do my social media images, and I usually have all that done before I actually have I need to take the kids to school and for 9 o'clock, and I have a lot of that work done. And then after that, then, everything after that then is kind of icing on the cake. But I have the majority of my, main work out of the way. I have the blog sorted and all those different things kind of done and dusted before I, come back from the school run and I tackle whatever I need to do. Like, for example, doing a podcast episode like this. So, for things to change, you're going to have to look at, what you're doing. If you are disappointed with your book sales, is your book sales going to improve if you don't improve? If you haven't bought any books recently on the craft of writing and read them, can you really expect for you to change and suddenly your writing to get better? Have you taken time to maybe take a good piece of fiction and write it by hand every day? All these small things that can make a difference to your writing. If you're disappointed with your blog traffic, what have you been doing up this moment in time? Have you been wasting time on social media? Have you been creating maybe social media images? Have you been, commenting on blogs? Have you been going to where people are and trying to divert that traffic over to your blog? So it's something to keep in mind. Like, if you're disappointed with, health-wise, business-wise, writing-wise, or whatever it is in your life, is to have a look at what you're doing. Those small habits, those kind of rituals that you do every day are giving you the results that you need, and the results that you're getting. And if you're not happy with the results, there's only one way you can change those results, is to go back to, for example, if you imagine the cause and effect. If you're not happy with the effects of the actions you're taking, you're going to have to change the cause. And by changing the cause at the very beginning, the results and the effects are going to be completely different because of it. If you imagine like a large ship, like, for example, like the Titanic years ago, when it was setting off on, between two cities, it was going in a direct line. But even if that rudder on that ship altered maybe 1 or 2%, that ship would go in a completely different direction. It's easy for us to look at somebody else maybe that's further on with us and maybe has, something that we want, and they seem so far away that we'll never actually ever get there. But even just a small change to your morning routines or something like that, just a couple of percent of change on the rudder of your ship, your mental ship, or what you're doing, is going to divert you from the destination that you're going to go to now. If you're not happy with the destination you're going to go to, it just takes a simple matter of just bringing in a little habit, even one a week, and that change is going to change where you're going to end up going to. So it's something to keep in mind today, and it's something that I am doing every day, and I can see the benefits of it. I know that with this morning routine now and the meditation and watching the positive things, rather than going to Netflix and, binging on box sets that were just kind of filling my head with storylines that I didn't really need, that wasn't moving my life in any direction, and it was probably giving me the idea that the whole world was a negative place, and that all the bad guys and all this, whatever it was just maybe in my subconscious mind, and it wasn't filling me. As I said, like before on the blog, it was just filling my head. It was like chewing on bubble gum. There was no substance to it. It was keeping my mind occupied for a while, but was I really learning anything from it? And I found, as once I've ditched I took the Netflix app off my Kindle, and I've stopped watching Netflix, and I've taken all the TV apps off my Kindle, and I found that I have a lot more free time now. I'm not distracted. I'm not kind of, when I used to go into Netflix, I wouldn't find, it would be common for me maybe to sit down for 2 or 3 hours and watch a couple of episodes back to back. But now that I have this time to myself, it's amazing how you realize how much time you wasted, and that time now can go towards creating content for the blog here, doing podcast episodes, doing something constructive, or even going for a walk with the dog and getting out now, because I have all this free time. And that is from those small changes that I made that have brought about a change. And so have a look at your life today. What small changes can you make today that can make a big difference to the destination that you're going to? So I hope you enjoy this episode. Again, thanks for joining me today. And of course, if you enjoy this episode and you learn a few things from it, or you'd like to give it to a friend, I'd really appreciate if you share this podcast episode. If you'd like to know more, you're very welcome to subscribe. At the moment, we are just after entering iTunes. So by the time you read this podcast episode, if you do a search on iTunes for the podcast, if you type in writecome.com, that's WRITECOME.com, and hit the subscribe button, and you could be able to get us on a daily basis. So hopefully this is something that I'll be able to do now with all this free time, is actually to go and create more and more podcast episodes. My dream at the moment is to do a little episode every day, and just to get my thoughts out there. So if you like it and you want to follow me, you're very welcome to subscribe to the podcast, and I'd really enjoy having you along for the ride. So thanks for listening again. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.